Hey, welcome to your day off. My name is Corey. Of course, sitting with my best bud, Tony. What's up, man?
What's going on, homie?
So, big shout out to our man Jerry at Schedulicity. Jerry was at the Hair Love Retreat, Elizabeth Faye's Hair Love Retreat, and he our guest today. He kind of put her on our radar.
Yeah, because when he came back, he's like, "Wow, this particular person really touched him," and he was really she had him thinking. You know what I mean? Like, wow, her story was amazing, and we're bringing her on today because there's a lot of people. Today's topic is going to be about mental health, but more than that, it's about a person's journey through our industry with that, and how she overcame, and how others, what she does to help others. But there's a lot of people that maybe are afraid to talk about it, but she's not. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
Yeah,
right? That's the gift, right?
That's truly the gift, right? So she's going to actually bring it up in the light and really share her story with everybody. And I'm just very grateful that she's open and honest about it.
That 100%. I'm also very grateful that she's choosing like our podcast to kind of tell her story. So thankful for that as well.
Yeah. So enough about me and you.
I know, right? I don't know where we're gonna go. So, but I'm excited.
I'm totally excited. You know what I mean?
Which is weird to talk about. I'm excited to talk about mental health.
Yeah. but we all, in some way, are affected, whether personally or we know someone. So you know what I mean? It's one of those things that the more that it's in the open, the better we can.
The better we all are, right?
100%.
That's awesome. So today our guest is Rachel Ringwood.
Say it 3 times.
Rachel Ringwood. I got it.
That was 2 very slowly, but you got it.
Well, who knows where we end up then?
Right.
So our guest is Rachel Ringwood, and again, just thank you to Jerry and for kind of putting us on our radar. So Miss Rachel Ringwood, welcome to your day off.
Hi guys, how are you? I'm so excited to be here. This is going to be exciting.
Yeah, we're like I said before, we're grateful and we're excited to have you on. Thank you so much.
No, of course. This is exciting. I think this is a huge topic that needs to be spread and people need to hear about it. And you're right, people don't talk about it as much. And I think it's a really important topic for hairstylists, artists, anybody who is in the industry to really kind of focus on and just take a time to actually think more about it. Because I think that's the biggest thing.
So where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Santa Monica, California. I was raised in Los Angeles. I did my schooling and hair and everything in California in Reseda. And I started working in California. And then I actually moved to Miami. So I'm currently in Miami now.
So you kind of did the reverse. Most people on the East Coast head out to LA or California.
Yeah, I flipped it.
What took you to Miami?
I met my husband on Instagram.
Oh, sweet. Wait. You can do that?
Well,
dating app.
Okay, so the crazy thing is it actually was before DMs were even a thing. So my husband's actually a barber, and I got very into barbering, and I was very infatuated with it. So I went on a rampage and started following a bunch of barbers. And him and I started following each other for maybe about 8 months. And I was in a relationship, he was in a relationship. And one day out of nowhere, again, before DMs, he comments on a photo that I posted. And he just said, "Wow, you are so beautiful to me." And for that, instead of being like, "Yo, girl, what's up?" I was like, "Oh, wow, this guy was kind of cool." So I checked his page out more, and I was like, "Wow, this guy's actually really talented." And so I said, "Thank you very much. As of lately, I don't have a boyfriend." He's like, "Oh, can I comment? Can I have your message, or can I text you?" And I was like, "Oh, as of lately, I'm kind of taking it slow, but you can have my Facebook, so we'll start there." Knowing that he's 3,000 miles away, but it was fine. And then instantly, I found out he was my soulmate within 2 weeks. And I said, crap, I'm going to have to move. And 3 months later, I moved, picked up everything, left my full clientele in Los Angeles, moved cross country in my car, and ended up in Miami and tried to rebuild a whole clientele. But we're married now 6 years later. So it worked out.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah.
That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could date on Instagram.
Nowadays it might be a little more sketch, but it was
all you single dudes, all you single barbers out there, or anybody, listen to his pickup point. That was slick.
Yeah,
right?
what was his line? What was it like? You're
You
beautiful
are
to me.
Beautiful to me. So y'all pay attention.
He gets that all the time. People are like, "How'd you get that?" And he's like, "I was just being nice." Like, and that was it. Genuine. He was genuine. That's how our conversation just started talking. And then the coolest thing is we actually then just started talking about hair. He started talking about fading. He talked to me about blow drying. I taught him how to blow dry. And it was like, it was so cool to have someone in the same industry that we could like bounce back ideas from. And it was like, then we just fueled each other for it. And then long story short, we actually own a barbershop / salon now. And it's been open for about 5 years now. And it's called His and Hers Parlor. So we work together all the time. Yeah. And it's really chill and a comfortable spot. And we absolutely love it. And everyone's always like, how the hell do you work together? You work together, you live together, you've been together. I said, I don't know. It just works. He's my best friend. And we just fuel each other. And I think that's what's really important too, is because we can kind of like bounce ideas off each other and be in the same mind space too.
I love that.
Yeah, kind of like a fairy tale type story.
Yeah.
You know?
That so you're a Cosmo then, and he's a barber?
Yep. I do all the cuts and colors for women, and he does all the barbers. He does the cuts, shaves, hot towels, but they're really good at styling and finishing too, because that was something that I helped him with that. Yeah. Yeah, stepped it up a bit.
Nice.
That's pretty cool, man.
I love the name too. His and Her Parlor.
I love it too. I wrote it down, man.
Yeah.
That might be a podcast in itself, to bring you two, lovebirds on the podcast and see how, and ask you all those questions that you just said.
Right.
Yeah, we have
how do you do
pretty
it?
crazy story. Yeah, it's fun though.
Yeah.
It's been open for about 5 years.
Yeah, November will be 5 years now.
Wow.
That's pretty cool. How's business?
Business, honestly, we can't complain. We're in a tiny little spot in like Wynwood, Miami, before Wynwood was a thing, before the arts and everything came in. It was kind of sketch, to be honest, but the space we found, we just fell in love with it. It's a tiny spot. It's a 3-chair barbershop and a 2-chair salon. So the cool thing is you actually walk into the front door and it's the barbershop. Designed very dapper, hardwood floors, subway tiles, wood, very elegant. You walk through these double doors that we had made, and it's my side. And it's like 2-chair, it's like beachy. There's plants everywhere, a lot of colors. It feels like 2 different worlds in one space. So it's really cool because we bounce ideas off each other, but there's times that he handles the barbershop and I handle the girl side. But it's cool because if he has any questions with styling, he'll just come over to my side, and vice versa. If I have like a fade I'm trying to do on a girl, I'm like, hey babe, can you like help me with this real quick? And everyone is such family that honestly, we don't accept walk-ins. We're appointment only. I'm booked up, the boys are booked up, and it's kind of like a family. You walk in there, it feels like a family, and that's all we kind of want, and that's what we're really, really happy about. And our clientele has been with my husband. He's been in Miami his whole life. He has clients he's been doing for 7-8 years that have followed him around, and it's been really cool to have that. And we're really happy with what we're doing. We're obviously trying to keep growing, but we just released our first product line too in December. So it's a tiny little 5-product line right now called Two-Tone Styling. It's for men and women, but it's mostly like 2 pomades, a texture spray, a boosting powder, and a beard oil. And it's just to show that anybody can use what products. It doesn't matter what sex or what gender. I have short hair. I get tight fades and I use the product on my hair, but I'll do like an updo and I'll like manipulate a braid and I'll put the clay in there too and the texture powder. We're just really happy with what we're doing, and we actually exclusively sell it out of our shop. We don't do it online, and we've been doing pretty well. But again, we created something that we wanted to do and what our clients use mostly in Miami, because Miami's weather is really nuts too. I had to learn how to restyle when I moved to Miami because of humidity, man. Like that is hard.
That is no joke.
Jack. No joke. Yeah.
There's none on the West Coast.
No, I'm dry, California. It's like you walk outside, your hair looks perfect, so kind of had to retrain. So.
Ringwood and Wynwood.
Yeah, Wynwood. Yeah, Arts District.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you're so busy. I mean, not only now you've been married for the last 6 years. You guys open up a shop, but you also do a lot of teaching outside of our industry.
Yeah.
Let's get into that story. How did all that come about?
It's actually quite interesting because I have to kind of delve into my story a little bit, because I grew up with like 4 boys. I have 2 brothers and 2 cousins. They're all the same ages as me. So I grew up smack in the middle of 4 boys. I was actually an athlete most of my life. I grew up playing softball and soccer at the age of 6. I did travel ball, and it was funny. I've always been a very busy kid. I'd go to school Monday through Friday, and I'd travel and do tournaments Friday through Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday. And it was something that I've always liked. But for me, I always needed an outlet because I was very hyper and very artsy, but I couldn't focus in class. So my parents put me in sports, and that physical outlet for me was very important. So fast forward a few years going through high school, I ended up going through a lot of my own mental states. And I actually went through my own like food issues. I actually was a cutter. I actually was hospitalized. I'll go into it because I'm not scared. I feel like people need to hear this, but I actually did attempt suicide, which put me in a psych ward for a few months. And I think that was a game changer in my life because I actually had a few nurses that told me this is the sickest kid we've ever had. And I had a deep core belief that I was not, like I was going to be okay. But half of me, obviously in your own ego, in your own mind, you're like, no, I'm the worst kid. I'm not going to get better. I'm not okay. You're artist, you just beat yourself up. But I had this one nurse that told me, no, you're good. You're not crazy. Just draw. Find a creative outlet and draw. So I was actually not allowed to have anything when I was in the hospital because they were scared I was going to hurt myself. So this guy gave me a marker and a paper, and I just started coloring. And that was when I really realized that art was needed in my life. And I, from that day, said, okay, whatever I'm going to do in my future, I know I have to do stuff with my hands, or I have to be creative because I just can't do a 9 to 5. I knew that was not for me. So fast forward, going through high school, still doing college, still doing softball, soccer, all that stuff. My goal then was to actually get scouted to play college softball. So I actually did that when I was a sophomore in high school, but I actually had to wait 2 years to get to actually play. So fast forward, my grades got up. Thank God my eligibility was good. I got scouted to play college softball. Went to do that. I decided I didn't want to play because my coach, unfortunately, was pretty abusive. And I decided I wanted to do photography. Photography was another outlet I did, which helped me be creative behind the camera and in front of the camera. And then I could do hair and makeup and kind of do and create my own pieces. I decided not to play. And my coach told me that photographers don't make anything in life. So I've had a lot of people tell me like, no, no, no. And I've always kind of really, in my core belief, no, I can do this. So I decided not to play softball, got stuck in all general ed classes in college, decided that wasn't for me, dropped all general ed and did all photography classes. Mm-hmm. Fast forward the whole year. I loved it, fell in love, didn't know where I was going to go from it, but I just knew where I was at in that moment. I needed to still be creative. And that was a healthy coping skill for me in my mental state. And I remember doing my final project. My teacher said, you have to do a headshot. You have to hire a hair and makeup artist, and you have to do this beautiful portrait. And I was like, I don't have any money. I can't hire a hair and makeup artist. And again, I grew up with all boys, have had short hair my whole life. I was like, you know what? I can make it happen. Of course, thank God my friend is gorgeous. So I used my gorgeous friend, so that helped. I did her hair and makeup, very simple and like Marilyn Monroe, like gorgeous eyelashes, red lipstick, and like a top knot. And I was like, I'm going to make sure these photos look great. So did that.
Freestyling it.
Yeah, I kind of faked it till you made it, but like made it happen. And like, but I had fun in the process. So did the shot, was really happy. My final project come back, my teacher asked, oh my God, who did the hair and makeup? And I started laughing so hard. And I said, do you like the photo though? Because that's like what I really wanted to care about. And he goes, no, the hair and makeup, the photo, everything about it. I said, wow. I woke up the next day with the biggest epiphany of my life saying, I have to go to beauty school. And that was fun telling my dad that I was not going to play softball anymore and I was going to go to beauty school.
Oh, wow.
So I decided to enroll that next day. I got it submitted. I got accepted and then I graduated. Well, I finished college in June and I started in September and I got a job in the process.
We can't chat of that. How did he respond?
He's a business owner. He owns a restaurant in California. So he's very structured. Like, I don't know what this is about. How do you know this is what you want to do? Rachel, you have a lot of hobbies. Is it something you want to do? And my brother was going to San Diego State at the time. So I said, well, think about this, Dad. If my brother goes to San Diego State for 4 years, we only have to pay maybe like a quarter of the tuition for cosmetology school. And I promise I'll get an assisting job. I'll pay for all my continued education. I'll get my license and I'll get a job. I had all these things set. And he goes, okay, I believe in you. And then I started, and I got an assisting position within 4 months of being in school. I went to school for 9 months straight, accelerated program. I went, and then I had a mentor that trusted in me a lot. And she brought me on to actually work on a film project. And I actually did special effects makeup. And that was what I started doing. And we actually did that. It was called 168 film project, where you have to get the whole cast and crew, film, edit, shoot, and everything within 168 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awesome though. And we did it. And a few months later, we actually got called back because we got nominated to win hair and makeup, best hair and makeup. And my mentor was like, no way. And I was like, we're going to win. Like, it's not, we're going to win. And there was 100 films and we were top 5. And again, I had maybe 4 months of school left. And I remember being in that auditorium, looking at all these places, and just this gut feeling was like, if we win, this is confirmation of what I need to be doing in my life. And they called our name up, and I said, you're going to talk when we win. She goes, we're not going to win. I was like, you're going to talk. So they called our name. We won first place hair and makeup. And I went home and showed my dad, and he goes, okay, I guess this is something you can do. And I was like, all right.
Yay, Dad.
Yeah. Oh. It helps to have that sometimes.
Oh, 100%. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then I would go to school Monday through Saturday, Tuesday through Saturday. And then I would assist full days on Mondays all day. And then I'd go back into school being like, oh my God, I learned this new technique. And my teacher's like, you can't do that here. We didn't teach you that. Like, you have to wait till you graduate. And I was like, oh my God, get out of here. So I was ready to graduate.
Right. That's awesome. So you were doing a lot of makeup and hair, like what was your specialty? Were you doing like updos and stuff or what spoke to you?
So honestly, I had a really good friend that she actually was struggling like me. Her and I were a good support structure for each other. She was actually going through a lot of her own issues too. And I had friends that were going through deeper issues as well, but in a negative way that they wanted to bring me down with them. And this one friend, her and I had this weird thing we like looked at each other and we're like, we see the talent in each other. Yes, we can bring each other down, but we need to like try to help each other out. So her and I on our days off, I would do her hair and makeup, and like we would structure a whole look. We would see where we'd want to shoot, and then we'd design the outfit, and then I'd do the hair and makeup around that. And it was honestly just winging it. And most of the time it was like crazy curled mohawks and like funky eyeliner and like crazy lips. And like we'd hold a sign that was like, tell me I can, I'll show you I can. Or like, like empowering things that made us feel good. Not like just like, let me look like a ballerina. Because that's not what I was feeling at the time. I was like rough and tug, and like I felt like I needed to like get these empowering sayings out with visual stuff too, because that's how people are. People are so visual. So it's almost if I caught their attention with this crazy art or this hair and makeup, then they would be like, oh, what do they have to say? And then that's kind of how I got my voice out without being able to speak, because speaking my problems has always been a really big problem for me. That's why I turned to self-harm, because I couldn't express myself. And that's why I realized that doing things with my hands and expressing and having a creative outlet was so healing for my mind subconsciously, but also it was healing. And I got to express myself and how I wanted to create it. So I think that's what's so important too, is you have to find people that want to fuel the good side of you, not bring you down and like, hey, let's go party, let's go do this, like find people around you that want to build you up as well. And she was that for me.
Is she a stylist?
She's not. She's a photographer now. And actually she continued doing photography, and she is a badass.
That's
so
awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Do you want to give her a shout out, or do you want to keep her a secret?
No, I'll for sure. Her name's Cece Wesky, and she actually just shot her own documentary this is the most bizarre thing. She actually designed and created her own film for 168 film project like last week, which is such a full circle. And she just is doing awesome things, and she's just kicking ass, and I'm so happy for her. And that's why it brings me such happiness, because her and I are doing the things And we just have motivated each other all these years. And she still lives in California, but we talk regularly and still like, hey, what are you doing? How you doing? You know, check in. And I think that's so important.
Beautiful. That's
Mhm.
It's kind of crazy. Like, you know that however many years ago that was, there was a conversation about, what our successful lives are going to look like. And it seems like both of them are kind of achieving that at this point,
right. And
Yeah, she was 13, I was 15,
Hmm.
and I just turned 28. So we've been in each other's lives for quite a few years now.
So you became the big sis. She became your sister in a sense that because you were just around all boys, right? So,
Yeah. Oh, she for sure. And she was tomboy too. She grew up like fencing. Her dad was actually like a sword fighter, so she grew up knowing how to fence, and she rides horses. So she was tomboyish too. So we'd be like, oh, there was a time where like, let's do a Photoshop on top of your horse, like crazy things like that. And she was like, okay, I'll do it. And like, it was like always, it was just great.
I'd love to see some of those images. Have you ever posted any of those?
You know what? I haven't, but she and I would probably have some. They'd probably be fun to do a throwback because looking back at it, it probably evolves and shows a lot of what we were going through. I'll pull those up. I'll try to find some of it.
Let's do this, Rachel. Let's for the people that are listening now, let's try to archive those, and then the day we release this, why don't you do a storyline of all those pictures, and we'll just kind of bring the podcast back into it, like
that would be dope.
So
for sure.
Sound good?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So if you can kind of archive those, you have a few weeks to do it. Just archive those, and then we'll and then when we do a release date, we'll do make sure you tag us in them as well, and also make sure that you tag Cece in it as well.
For sure, will do. She's awesome. I would love to post those. Those are gonna be fun to look at.
That's cool.
So, wow, so you guys go through this helping each other, but I mean, how does it continue to evolve? I mean, because obviously it's got to be a constant struggle or a constant, not a struggle, but maybe a tug of war in your head, right?
I mean, there's a piece missing for me as well, like Rachel, like you kind of breezed over like you were a cutter and like the suicide and stuff like that. But what was going on kind of before that? I mean, what was this mental health thing? What was that before? What was the foundation of that, I guess is the question I'm asking.
Yeah, for sure. I actually started, this is what's so hard about my story, and I didn't ever really understand it until the older I got. I started going through some really darker thoughts, maybe around like 11, 12, 13. And I didn't know why, because if you looked at my life, a lot of my friends would say, she has a perfect household. My parents were middle class. My parents are still together. I grew up with really good brothers. I went to a private school. I was an athlete. I had a lot of friends, like all these things. So from the outside, I was like the perfect friend or perfect girl. But on the inside, I was like dying, and I didn't understand why I was having these dark thoughts of like, I'm not good enough, or not even that, just like, why do I deserve all of this? Why am I placed in this earth to have such blessing when all my friends are struggling so hardcore? And it was such a weird thing that I was the happy one for everyone. So when I would go to school, everyone's like, oh, Rach, okay, so what are we going to do today? And it was my job to make everybody else happy. And being in elementary, middle school, that was my role. And that started to really beat me up more because I didn't really understand it. And then my thoughts, I would wait till I would get home, and then all these thoughts almost just like overwhelmed me. And then it started getting really negative. And I didn't know how to talk about it. So I started writing all of my deep thoughts. And I would actually used to write poetry. And my poetry got darker as the older I got. And unfortunately, someone read my poetry and it shut off. And I kind of turned that off. And that's how I started holding in all of my emotions and my thoughts. And it's hard to pinpoint one specific thing, but I do remember feeling like I was not supposed to be here anymore, like I was a burden, and it started triggering into that and spiraling downhill. But there was also a thought that I felt, this is going to sound really crazy, that I couldn't express myself vocally, so I took it out on myself. Like my mental state was so deep that I couldn't express the pain I was having mentally. And since I was an athlete, I could understand physical pain. So that's how it transformed into my cutting. And it wasn't an addiction at the beginning. And I didn't do it where anyone could see. It was like hidden, and I didn't want the attention from it. But then I also had friends that were going through divorce, and having struggle or being abused and all this stuff. And I didn't understand that. And I felt like subconsciously, almost like a voodoo, like if I took the pain out on myself, it would heal them further away, which is a very morbid, deep thought. But I couldn't understand why I was really going through that. But I really just wanted to understand why I was going through what I was doing, but I didn't understand why.
You good?
Yeah, I can't really pinpoint where it all started, to be honest, because it all has kind of flowed together. And I feel like it just started getting darker and darker, and I couldn't understand why, and I never talked about it. So it just kept like getting to a point where the only thing I could do was turn into a physical release. And that's how my cutting evolved even more. And I felt like that was the only thing that was there for me. It was like a friend at that point. And then it turned into a hardcore addiction. And then it turned into actually like an eating disorder. And then it turned into feeling like I had to be on all the time. So as soon as I would get to school, I was on. I was a happy one. No one knew what I was going through. And then as soon as I would get home, I would literally lock myself in my room and turn into another person. I felt like I then was allowed to feel like myself and express myself. But then it turned into I wasn't sleeping and I had really bad insomnia. And then I would try to not cut. And then I would also have night terrors that would beat me up in the middle of the night. So then I was kind of scared to sleep for a while. So I was going through bouts of going to school from like 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then from practice from like 3 to 6. I'd come home and take a nap and then be up to like 6 a.m. And I did that for like 2 years of my life in high school. And that was really starting to drive me crazy. But it was to a point where my addiction got so bad that I just couldn't help it anymore. And I was like crying out for help. And one day someone was like, Rachel, are you okay? And I just brushed it off and it made me very uncomfortable. And I just started
What made you feel uncomfortable? Was it the brushing off or being asked?
both being asked. I didn't want anybody to see what I was going through because I felt like I had this responsibility to make others happy and make sure they were okay and not put myself first. And that's probably the worst thing you can do.
So your family had to have seen kind of that you were putting up this front. And then, I mean, they also had to see both. I guess they had to have been involved in both ends of it, right? They had
Yeah.
to be involved in like, who's this deep, dark, Rachel. And then who is this, happy-go-lucky Rachel. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that they were hoping that they'd get more happy Rachel than they were, getting deep, dark Rachel. But
And
like,
yeah.
yeah. No, go ahead.
That was the hard part is my mom would see me come home from school and I'd be like lit up and I'd be super happy or I'd be happy with the accomplishments I did with sports and all that stuff. And then I would just like switch and I'd go into this mindset of being like, I'm the worst person. I'm not good enough. I don't think I'm supposed to be here anymore. But that got to a point where I hid it till I was like 15. And my mom saw one of my cuts on my stomach and that's how it opened the door of conversation. And then she started checking in on me. And there was one day where actually something happened and she goes, I think you should talk to someone. And I said, okay, I'm okay with it because I knew I was like dying on the inside, but I didn't want to ask for help because that was the hardest thing because I was supposed to be the strong one. I wasn't supposed to be broken. And so we actually talked, I talked to pastor and I told her all these things that I was going through and something in my gut was like, all right, tell her what you're going through. And I told her all my thoughts I was having, all these things that was going through my head. And the fear in her eyes was terrifying. And she goes, we need to go home and talk to your mom right now. And I said, no, this is why I don't talk to people. I don't want people to be scared. I don't know. But I went home, she talked to my mom, and that next day I had a therapy appointment. So they took it very seriously. But I did do a really good job at trying to hide it because I thought it was something that was going to go away, to be honest. But it was not. It was something embedded in my head. So I went to a therapy appointment. Then I ended up getting diagnosed with severe depression, anxiety, and I was on sleeping meds as well. But within that time, that's when I tried to attempt suicide because they put me on 3 different medicines within the same amount of time. And that's when I tried to attempt suicide. Then they put me in the psych ward. And that's when my life kind of changed for the better and for the worse.
As a parent, it's probably one of the most frightening times is to watch your child suffer or go through something like that. I mean, especially sounds like you're very close with your parents, and um, thank goodness you had that support as well. But I mean, I couldn't imagine how did she hold up?
Well, that was another reason why I didn't want to tell them, is because I had everything going for me. Why the heck am I going to put them through this? What did they do to me to make me think like this? And I didn't want to be a burden to them. That was, I hate to say, but that was one of my last thoughts before I not didn't want to be here anymore. Like, if I was not here, it would be a lot easier. Um, but I hate to say, my parents, I wish everyone could have my parents. They have been supportive from the day one to now. They did everything I could. They put me away and I needed to be away. I didn't want to be there when I was a kid because I missed actually my first whole semester of junior year. And then I couldn't play sports. And that really broke my heart too, because I realized that physical mental connection for me was like my antidepressant, and I couldn't do it. But my parents have been supportive 100%, and I'm very thankful for that. But I don't know what they truly felt. And my mom, all she says is, I just want you to be okay. And that's why I feel so blessed. And
And
that's why I wanted to fight for it too, you know?
as you're telling this story, it's impossible. Like Tony was just saying, it's impossible not to see it as a parent. We both have, young daughters and,
Yeah.
or daughters. I don't know how young they are anymore, but we both have daughters and I just couldn't imagine as a parent, and the most helpless way you can feel as a parent is to be helpless or help.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? Just,
Yeah.
just you can't fix this, and certainly, not to bring like a gender bias into it or anything, but certainly as a dad, males are much more like, fix it focused, so I can't imagine again how your dad was, because my daughter and I were pretty close as well, through sports as well. And I just could never imagine like being in a position where I am helpless, for them, because we want to do is fix. So, that's what I'm struggling with in your story, not whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So you spent your entire first semester of, what did you say was your junior year?
Hmm.
Of
Junior year.
your junior year. So kind of walk us through a little bit too what it felt like going back to school, because you kind of had to feel like, your tail between your legs a little bit, that your business is out there, that everybody's talking, and certainly high school can be tough when it comes to that, because the people around you don't understand what that's all about too, and now you're just coming back as the crazy girl, I assume.
Yeah. It's actually a really interesting story because I went to a very religious private school, and my high school was only about 200 kids. And I went there through kindergarten through 12th grade. And I was there. So that was another thing, is I had an older brother that went through that school too. So I was known as like little Ringwood. So people knew me coming in. So they have seen me from kindergarten through the time that I was hospitalized. So they didn't really understand. I was happy up until that day that I was not there. And it was a thing that my parents actually went to the school and talked to them, because they said, "What's up with Rachel? Where is she? She's not playing sports." Like, everybody knew who I was.
Hmm.
Since was also harder because, like you said, everyone's in each other's business and it was a small school. So my parents actually went to the school and talked to the principal and said, "Hey, these are the things that Rachel's going through. She's hospitalized, but we want to try to keep her on track so she can graduate. But we do not want the teachers to talk about her when she's not here or start rumors about it. So if you can kind of control it." So I didn't know that that was actually happening. So when I decided to come back to school, I was really nervous. And my dad was so sweet. And I was like, "Dad, all these people are going to talk about me. They're going to wonder what happened." And in the time, I actually cut all my hair off. I looked totally different. So everyone obviously was like, "Oh, she had a mental breakdown." Everyone thought I was pregnant. Everyone thought, like, didn't like all these crazy rumors. So my dad was like, "We're going to create this story that like astronauts needed you," like just being ridiculous, so like we could just deter the conversation. So I had this whole mental thing like, okay, when I go, if people ask me, am I going to tell them the truth? Am I nervous? I wasn't ready to open up yet. And I just didn't know what to really expect. But I went into school just going back, and no one said anything. No one asked me how I was. No one asked me what happened. And for me, that freaked me out more, thinking, does no one care about me? You
Right.
know? But it wasn't in the case, knowing that they were trying to respect me. But in my case, thinking I've been alone for all these years. in my own head and actually been away, put away. And these are familiar faces to me, and no one cares. So that was like right in the middle of finals time. So I actually had to sit in class during finals. And to be honest, I was not ready to be released from the hospital. I tried to get out because I felt insane. I didn't want to be there. They put me on a bunch of medication and I just didn't feel sane. And so I got out, and being in school though, I realized I'm not ready to be. So I made it like Monday through Friday. On Friday, I had this really overwhelming, like manic episode in class. And I said, I need to leave. I need to leave right now, or this is not going to be good. And my teacher wouldn't let me leave. And I said, I have to leave. So, and I hate to say this, but I started like cutting myself under my desk because it was such a pent up energy that I like couldn't think. And I went up to him again. I said, I need to leave. I went to the bathroom and called my mom, and she came and picked me up. And I actually was admitted back into the hospital that day because I ran away. It was just too overwhelming for me. And that was a time where I was hospitalized and I almost felt at home with more of the crazy people, which is I hate that word, crazy has such a stigma. But with these kids that were going through things, I finally was like accepted a part of myself that maybe mental health is going to be a part of my life. And now I have to find healthy coping skills. It was like a time where I said, okay, you're either going to survive from this or you're not going to get better. And from a nurse, I had a nurse tell me I was on suicide watch. So that means you have to be on a nurse within 3 feet of 24 hours a day. And I was in my bed at like 3 a.m. And I remember having a nurse saying, this is probably the worst kid we've ever had. And that was the second time I've heard that. And I said, damn, what is with this? I'm not a bad kid. And so halfway in my gut said, no, I'm going to get better. I'm going to overcome this. And that time when I got released the second time from the psych ward, I said, my life's changed. And that was when I was 17. And I said, I'm going to use my story for the better one day. It might not be now, but in 10 years, at least I'm going to be ready then. And it's crazy to think because 10 years full circle, that's where we're at now. And it's taken me a lot of self-awareness, a lot of therapy, and figuring out, because I actually was diagnosed bipolar in the psych ward, and they put me on lithium, which is a very, very intensive drug, which numbed me. I had no emotions. And I'm very emotional. I'm a very emotional being. I'm very sensitive. And those are things I just never understood because, again, growing up with boys, you're supposed to be tough. You rub some dirt on it. You just do it. You don't think about your emotions. You don't cry. You just do it. And for me, I just couldn't understand everything that was going on in myself. So it took a lot of times realizing maybe I'm not bipolar. Maybe I'm very empathetic, but I do need to find balances and stuff that works for me. And medication is necessary for a lot of people. But a lot of people, there are things that don't work. So I've been on a lot of different meds in my life. And unfortunately, I hate to say this too, but when I was in the psych ward, they actually overdosed me on lithium and released me too soon because they wanted to get me out. So by that time I got home, I was actually overdosing on my medicine, and I was sick for about 2 weeks and I couldn't go back to school yet because of that situation. And then I was on a correct medicine, but I was just like this. I was just numb. And I said, okay, if this is how life is supposed to be, I guess it's better than dying. Like, I'll just be like this. And then it just realized, no, I'm supposed to be an emotional being. I'm supposed to be creative. And all the medicine just numbed me. I had no creativity and I had no anything. And I said, I'd rather be hyper emotional than numb. And that's kind of what evolved into like, okay, I need to find different remedies and different ways to help myself and read and educate myself on mental health. And that's really what started my journey, is when I was ready for it and talking about it.
And did you I mean, after you kind of made the decision that you had to control Rachel more than the drugs control Rachel, and I don't know what the situation is now, but was the natural kind of like move to go into some sort of therapy? And like, did you ever do therapy or
I was in therapy a lot, actually.
But you know what I mean? Like was that what drew you?
Yeah. Therapy helped me a lot. The hard thing too, because when I was 15, when I first talked to my mom, they put me with a therapist, and they put me with a specialized kid therapist that was for eating disorders and for self-mutilation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with her for about, a few weeks to a few months. And there was one day where she was kind of tempting me with cutting and scissors in the room, and I just had a panic attack, and I said, I just want to have a safe space. Can you please remove that from the room? I don't feel safe. And long story short, she just said, I'm sorry, I can't work with you anymore. I don't feel like this is a good fit. And I was like, okay. She ran out of the room. My mom used to sit in the waiting room, and she came and sat and told my mom, hey, I'm sorry, I can't work with your daughter anymore. And my mom looks at me like, what'd you do? And I was like, I didn't do anything, I thought. And that was my first therapy experience. Then I was like, I'm not going back to therapy ever again, Mom. This is horrible. If she's a trained professional telling me that I'm too sick to work with, how the heck do I have hope? And that's where it spiraled into going into the psych ward, and from there in my medicine.
What do you mean she was tempting you with scissors and stuff?
Well, she would, I was there mostly for self-harm. She had this thing where every other appointment, she would put sharp objects in the corner of the room. And one day I just kept hyper focusing on it. Like, she would have a pencil pouch with like scissors in it and like a mail opener, like these sharp things. And and obviously there's sharp things around the world, and I get it. And she'd be like, you're going to go home. There's temptations. And I said, I know, it's just this one day I'm having a hard day. I would please respect if you could remove this from the session today. And she just said, no, just very, like, you have to deal with it, all this stuff. And I just was like, I can't today. Like, I'm going to hurt myself if that is still there. And that's what triggered her saying, oh, I can't do it anymore, which I didn't get, because I didn't threaten her. I didn't threaten my life. It was just like, it was just a misunderstanding, I guess. And it was just, okay, I would rather not work with her anyway. I mean, our vibes didn't work out anyway, so it worked out. But I've gone to a few other therapists from then, fast forward. And when I was released the second time, I found this one guy therapist, and he was the one who truly saved my life and kept me on track and listened to me and found what I needed to do to get better.
You mentioned eating disorder. Would you starve yourself, or would you just,
It's hard to say because I was an athlete, so I would try to do that, but I would like faint, so I couldn't. So it actually turned into bulimia for a while. And the crazy thing is if you looked at me again as a kid in high school, everyone would have been like, oh, she has a great body. She's athletic. She's whatever. She's solid. And I was actually a catcher. So I was like short and like solid. But, I had my own mental image that body dysmorphia was a really big thing for me for some reason. And I didn't understand why. And that was always a struggle, but obviously realizing that was never the answer, because it was just a whole circle of me eating and then throwing up and then how to play, and then I wouldn't feel good, and then mentally I was like starving myself. My brain wasn't getting nutrition, and it was just a whole full cycle. But that was something that actually started off at an early age, and then developed into cutting, and then dealing with both of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I guess, you said 10 years full circle. So throughout those 10 years, obviously, I mean, you were going through therapy, but you're developing your skills on how to, I don't know if you would say overcome it, but how to
manage
it,
control it. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
let's get into the story, how you evolved to what you're doing today.
So that's what's so crazy about my story. I feel like it all kind of flows so well together, because it was the time where I decided when I was 17, when I got out of the hospital, that's when I said, okay, Rachel, what really makes you happy? And at that time it was sports. In sports, I said, okay, my goal is to get scouted. My goal is to play college ball. And I knew I wasn't going to go to a 4-year if I wasn't playing sports, because school was not my thing really. But I did that, and that was my goal, and I did. But I actually wanted to get scouted to play college, play in the Olympics. But they actually took softball out of the Olympics, because USA wins every year, so that was kind of unfortunate. But I decided to focus more on that, and then I really started finding anytime that I wanted to do something negative to myself, I tried to replace it with something positive. So if I was catching myself being like, oh, I just want to stay in my room all day, I would force myself to go outside and like try to create something or build something with my hands. Or I have a lot of hobbies that I've picked up over the years. Everything is creative. But I realized that was my biggest thing. I said, okay, if I'm going to live this life, I have to do stuff creative on a daily basis, whether it be drawing, whether it be poetry, making jewelry, knitting, crazy. I love doing all that stuff. But I really believe that managing my mental health has a big hand in hand with creativity.
Mm. So, like you kind of went through the story, and you were young at the time. How did you? And I don't even know if you have, but how did you? I'm gonna we'll just put it out there. How did you
Mhm.
avoid addictions, or is it something that you kind of went through? Because that seems like kind of like the natural kind of like progression of this, and we certainly see a lot. I mean, we did a whole month on addictions, back last October. So, like, how did you? Did you avoid it, or what was your relationship with it like that?
Yeah, for sure. I actually do think I have an addictive personality.
Mhm.
So I think that's why when I get so obsessed with something, I like hyper focus on it. And that's like the only thing that my brain focuses on. So when it came to my eating disorder, I felt like it turned into addiction at that point. And then my cutting turned into addiction. Actually, when I was 15 too, I would steal my parents' alcohol and I started drinking. So I would drink and then that would trigger my cutting and my mental state even worse. And
Mhm.
it was one of those things that as a young age, again, not understanding what was going on in my head, when I would drink, it would numb me. And I felt like finally I could escape from my brain. But when I was hospitalized and my parents found out that I was doing that, obviously I stopped drinking till I was older. And then I actually stopped drinking till I was about 21. I didn't start drinking until maybe, yeah, 21, 22. And actually, it did start getting into a problem. It started getting into a routine of me feeling that feeling again of I don't know what's going through my head and I don't want to feel it. After a long
Mhm.
day of work or after all this, I said, I just want to escape. And that was my escape. And I didn't really realize that I was doing that because it was so normal, especially in the hair industry or in any artist. Like people just tend to drink, like, oh, let's go out, have a drink or whatever. And my parents drink again. But it's just one of those things that I realized I was doing it for the wrong reason because
Mhm.
of trying to figure out all this stuff that was going on. And I wasn't doing self-help work. I was just numbing myself. And the older I got, it didn't transform into me drinking every day. It was when I was having a very overwhelming moment or I couldn't focus on what was happening, then that's when I would drink. And then I just like numb myself till I blacked out. And that was really hard. It's hard for me to say because I don't really talk about that side of it, but I think it
Mhm.
is really important. But I'm very happy to say I never got into drugs because I kind of knew if I did, I would be a goner because of my personality. But my mom also scared the crap out of me when I was younger, like about drugs. But luckily, I've
You've been able
stayed
to stay
clear of
clear of it.
that.
Great awareness, though.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
amazing.
a lot
I'm
of
kind
people
of
don't have that type of self control, but that's great self control and great awareness.
I'm kind of blown away too how like, and I kind of want to get into what you're doing now to let's be honest, you're
Mhm.
doing sessions now to keep you
Yeah.
keep you
Help
clear, but
others.
I'm kind of blown away by, like you said, the self-awareness. And like, the thing about self-awareness is catching it early, and be like, oh, this is that behavior that
Mm.
that leads down to this road. So, if I could stay off this road, then, so I mean, I commend you and I applaud you for being able to catch those early on to move on to the next phase. So I mean, right now, like, and we talked about this, I guess, yesterday or last night. Like, you just put up a yoga video, and I thought it was pretty cool. So what stuff are you doing? Not only to help other people, but what are you doing to kind of like, to re-energize those positive roads?
Yeah. So fast forward after all that, hair was something that really kept me focused on my daily. So I wanted to put my effort in other people. Again, I love making people happy. So me being able to do a creative outlet as well as make people happy was a good thing. So being in the salon every day, surrounding with good people and clients really helped me feel that. So in the last years, I realized that when I started doing hair, I thought that if you were a successful hairstylist, you didn't have a lunch break. Time is money. You work through your lunch. The more clients you can get in, the better. So I always thought the busier I am, the better I am. Um, that actually hurt me because I actually had a really bad fainting accident because I was working so long behind the chair. 2.5 years ago, I fainted and hit my head on the floor, and it took me out of the salon for about 3 to 6 months.
Mm.
And I lost my equilibrium. I couldn't walk for about 2 weeks. I had to cancel 3 months worth of appointments. And that was when I truly realized that hairstylists and artists do not take care of themselves physically as well as mentally. Obviously, I've been doing my own self work in the last few years with my own therapy and my own mental stuff. And I do, thank you. I like to be very self-aware and catch myself, because I feel like I've gone through so much now. I can be very aware of what I go through. But that was a trigger of how I actually got into yoga, because yoga always intimidated me, because I was never flexible. I was never, oh, that's for really pretty girls that can do yoga that look good, you know. But for me, after my head injury, it just took me out of my own ball game. I realized I need to do something that got my mental state better as well as my physical state. So I started doing yoga to get my equilibrium back, because I had no hand-eye coordination anymore. I actually developed vertigo from my fall. And since I had so many head injuries in my past because of sports, it was such a gnarly concussion that they told me if I have another head injury, I could become a vegetable. And that is really terrifying to me, because I'm very tough and I'm very athletic. So that's scary to think that in my next few years, like if I can't afford another head injury. And when I fainted, all my body weight dropped and I hit the right quadrant of my head. And when I woke up a minute later, I had a hematoma the size of a grapefruit that just popped out of the side of my head. And I later realized that head injury or hematoma had a 50% chance of survival rate. And luckily my head didn't crack open. So that was a huge life change for me. And I realized this is not me. I felt like I was in a whole nother body. And that was actually when I decided, wow, we need to focus more on our mental health and physical health and tie those two together. So that was when I really started focusing on that. And it was really hard because I felt like I was letting everybody down. I was letting my clients down. I was letting my family down. I was letting my salon down. And again, it reverted back. It almost reverted me back 10 years to my mental state as a little kid. And the crazy part is the corner of the head I hit was all emotion, creativity, and memory. And those are things that I then struggled with after. It was almost like I hit my head and I turned into my kid again. So I was like, oh, how do I cope? Oh, cutting. Oh, eating. Oh, it was like I was trying to comfort myself in all these negative ways. And it was really interesting that my head injury affected my mental health again and then affected my physical health. So I was then fighting to just try to get back into the salon. And I couldn't, because the lights were affecting me. The sound was affecting me. I was ringing in my ears. And so that was kind of, I started really like putting myself first again and realized, okay, I'm going to do something and try to get back my strength. And then in that whole process, I realized, Rachel, this is not about you. This is about so many other people. And you have to use your story to help educate others. And I have gone through so much in my life for some reason. And that was another thing. I didn't realize why I was going through all this stuff. And now I realize, okay, if I had to go through it and I survived it, it's my time to use my voice to help bring awareness to different parts of life and to not be shameful for it, because all of us are human and all of us have our own mental phases and physical phases. And a lot of us have invisible injuries we don't know about and don't talk about, and that's what's really strong. And I think that's what brings us all together. So I'm just trying to help bring that. And yoga then has been my safe haven. And I then have now been able to get back behind the chair and strengthen myself and strengthen my mental and physical, because you are forced to have that connection. And that is what's so important. And I feel like it's almost like such a present in life when when your mind and body is connected, when they're just not doing their own things. Because your mind can talk you out of things so easily and your body's still doing its thing. And your mind's like, no, you're supposed to go this way. And it's like, no, I'm supposed to be in the present. I'm supposed to be here right now. So that was my head injury really kind of shook me up a bit and kind of changed how I thought and what I realized in the hair industry, especially hairstylists. We do not take care of ourselves. And I didn't want it to happen to me, but I'm kind of glad I did, because then I can now bring awareness to it and try to shed some light on this topic and addiction and anything that hairstylists tend to go through, or anybody.
So how are you reaching, it's one thing for Rachel to sit back and go, oh yeah, hairdressers need to do this or hairstylists need to do this. But like, what's your commitment to the industry there? Like, what are you doing to help the hairstylists? Other than this podcast, but to bring awareness to this, and like, how are you owning it, I guess is what I'm saying, for the industry?
Yeah. So that's actually been kind of a challenge for me. in the last few years, because it was almost like as soon as it happened, it was like, I need to do this. But I think for the last few years, it was so tough because I didn't, again, you have to follow what is your path and what you're supposed to be doing. For the longest time, I thought I was supposed to be educating with hair. I thought I was supposed to be working with companies and all this stuff. And then something in my gut was like, nope, there's other hairstylists that can educate on hair. I need to be educating on something else. And then with this, I realized I have to tell my story. So I was trying to structure like a class. I was trying to do that. And then I realized all of it starts with a conversation. It starts with bringing awareness and talking about it and then going from there, because I actually have had the opportunity to speak at Hair Love. This was my second year. And the number of women that came up to me after saying, wow, people don't talk about this. Wow, I feel connected. Wow, this is amazing. That is really what has blown me away. But I'm trying to do my own videos of how to stretch or how to take care of yourself behind the chair. I try to do tips on how to fuel yourself before the day, or how to make sure you eat during your busy day, or pack snacks or healthy snacks, or get up an hour before work and meditate or breathe, or don't just get up and rush to the salon. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I have 30 clients today and I can't breathe. And you're just overwhelmed the whole day. There's ways that you can stop and integrate your mental awareness during your day. But I do believe that there's a whole avenue with this for stylists. And I think that it's only kind of the beginning, but I love that people are becoming open-minded to it now, because I feel like a lot of people were just like, oh, I'll deal with that later. Oh, that's not something. But I'm here to say, like, this is something we all need to bring awareness now. And I think it's just kind of bringing thoughts to your own internal stuff, because that's the thing, is I can tell you, hey, what works for me is not going to work for you. Say like my release is, hey, I love going to the gym for 10 minutes a day. Say you hate going to the gym. Why would I tell you to go to the gym every morning? Like, then you're like in hell, you're on your own space. So you have to find stuff. I try to tell stylists, you have to find a little piece of paradise every single day and integrate that into your life. Because what's going to happen is, yes, it's always good to have something to look forward to. Like in 3 months, oh, I'm going on a trip. I'm going to go see family. I'm going to go on a staycation. Like that is always, I think, is extremely important to have. And my dad always taught me that. Have something to look forward to, because you work hard, you need to enjoy your life too. But I do believe that we're always trying to find this balance, this like, okay, I'll go to work and then I'll come home and clean, or I'll come home and cook, and I'll spend time with my family. And, but I don't think it's a balance. I think it's like you have to find a rhythm in life and not wait for that teeter to get like really bad and be like, oh wait, no, I have to go like this now. I think it's finding, like, say if you really like going to the beach, make time to go to the beach, make time to do things instead of pushing it off later. But for me, on a regular basis, I have to integrate a routine before my workday, that I'll get up, I'll stretch, I'll get my mind right, and tell myself it's going to be a great day. And I'll walk myself through my day, visualize it almost like as it's going really, really well. And obviously things come up and things change. But I think when you have that self-awareness going into your day, instead of just like, oh crap, I'm late, I have to go to this, I hate this client, I have this person on my books today, I don't have a lunch break, I don't have, it's like, we're all in control. We're in the driver's seat. And as stylists, we're in the driver's seat doing color. But we don't think about being in the driver's seat of our life or our head. We're in control of our thoughts. And if you're a jerk, you can have control of what you're going to say. You just have to think about it. And that's it. It's all self-awareness and this reality. But like I said, people are becoming more open-minded to it, because I've talked about this stuff for years. And if you go down on my Instagram, like I've talked about it from the beginning, because that's just who my life has been. And I've realized when I don't have that mind-body connection, my body goes out of whack. My mind goes out of whack. And then I get overwhelmed. And then it's hard for me to do these talks because I don't feel like I'm in the right mental state. It's like, and all these people now are just trying to be so busy and trying to do the next thing. And it's like, we have to enjoy our life too, So I think it's finding a rhythm in your life and finding things that make you happy. But I do believe that hairstylists need to take care of themselves a lot more than what we do. And I always say, if you're going to spend 6 to 8 hours on a color correction with one person, you won't even spend 30 minutes on yourself a day. Like we have to book, like I tell stylists, book an hour for yourself a day. You deserve it. Even if it's broken up into 15-minute intervals throughout the day, 15 minutes before work, 15 minutes on your lunch break, 15 minutes after work, and 15 minutes before bed, like that's okay. Or do whatever you need to do, like 30 minutes, like make time for yourself.
You know, I think you're in a perfect space right now because we certainly are seeing a lot more like wellness talk in the industry. You know, you have Elizabeth Fay who's talking about wellness a lot. You have Kelly Mason who has a whole podcast about hairstyle, hairdresser wellness. I think you're in a perfect space. But how do you define wellness?
I think wellness is full circle. I think wellness is super individual. I think it's something that it's hard because we can look on Instagram, we can look on Pinterest, we can look on YouTube to try to get ideas, or like you can look on and be like, oh, let me my 5 a.m. morning routine. And people will go and watch that, but it will not work for your life. I tell people, you like have to sit alone with yourself and really focus on what you really like to do and what you want to do to help you feel like a full person and full and fueled and enough and for yourself. I think wellness is mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. I think it's all of it together. And whatever that means for you is what you need to incorporate into your life.
That's beautiful.
Right. I think that's the best way to kind of wrap this whole conversation up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for being vulnerable and thanks for sharing your story with us. I mean,
is there if is there any way is there anything you want to push out there or plug out there, or how people can find you, or maybe reach out to you?
just follow
Yeah.
money, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to get some more stuff out there because I am always I have this balance between being present in my own life and being present on social media. And I can be the worst sometimes because I tell people if they need to take social media breaks, do it for your mental health. But I think there's a fine line. But yeah, this is only a snippet of my story and it's only getting out there. And of course, there's so many topics and I'm like just excited to talk about it. So if anybody feels like they need to talk or reach out, or if you have questions or friends and family, like you can always reach out to me through my Instagram. I'm working on trying to obviously keep going. I have a YouTube. It's my name. Everything's my name. Just Rachel Ringwood. But I have been doing more talks and stuff. But the cool thing, I actually am creating a community women's class in Miami. So it's going to be a once a month meetup for women to kind of get together and just like express themselves creatively. And it kind of came with the concept of my clients because my clients are really dope women. And I was like, if you knew that person and you knew that person, you guys would get along. And unfortunately, Miami's a little tough to meet friends. So I always thought if I could bring this together, that'd be cool. So I'm actually teaming up with the Mental Health Foundation and we're bringing like an expressive class, and it'll be different every month, but it'll be a place for not just stylists, but for the community to come out and express themselves and be like a safe place for women to just feel secure and just comfortable and meet women too. So that's my next project I'm working on. And then I'm also doing talks and stuff too. But I'm open to talk to anybody. That's the thing, is I'm not scared to talk about this. And I think it's important for other people to talk about it too. And I actually just started another Instagram called Rachel's Reach. And that's going to be based on a bunch of stories that I want to share and have other people come and be featured and talk about their stories and what they've gone through and overcome, to show that we are breaking the stigma of mental health, that it's okay to talk about and it does not make you crazy. And as a young professional or entrepreneur, people shouldn't stigmatize you as like, oh, she's bipolar, she might screw up my hair because she's having a bad day, And that was what I was scared of when people knew about my issues. But now it's like, no, I'm in control. I do what I need to do. I'm good. I'm ready. And I feel like my mental illness is like my superpower, to be honest. I feel like it connects me with other people. And that is a true connection with this earth now, because everything is so technology that I feel like being humane and connecting and talking and being able to do that is amazing. And I want to talk to everybody. So if anybody wants to talk, I'm around. I just love it.
Great perspective.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Thanks.
Miss Rachel Ringwood, thank you very, very much for joining us on your day off.
Thank you for having me, for everything.
Hey, so there it is. Hey, this is a message that we've been trying to bring, I don't know, for the last couple months, actually since we started the podcast. Hey, so if you like the podcast or if you find that it's useful, please leave us a review, a 5-star review on iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review.
But if you don't like it, forget about it.
Yeah, totally forget about this message. We also want to thank Sarah and Blaine from Pretty Gritty. Sarah and Blaine, they are a band out of Portland, Oregon, and we just want to thank them very much for allowing us to use their song, Pleased to Meet You, on our podcast. That's cool. I think you can find, actually you can find their music on iTunes.
Peace and hair grease.